Continuing on a busy Thursday, it's the Joel Natale Show, live from our Kingdom Financial Group studio here at 5th and State, also live on Facebook and on YouTube. And one of my favorite people out there, and really one of the smartest ones when it comes to the media, is Professor Brian Sheridan of Mercyhurst University. Brian, it's been a while since you've been on the show, but thank you so much for coming back and sharing with us during this particularly big media moment, I think. It's a big one.
It certainly is. Lots to discuss, lots of things going on, and I appreciate you asking.
All right, so before, we were talking about what we should talk about first. I'm going to switch that. We'll do
Okay.
We're going to call it Audible. I want to know what your version of Gen Zers are consuming these days. Are the kids getting everything from TikTok now?
Yeah.
That
Next question.
That just destroys my heart.
Yes, though I do see ones that actually read physical books. They'd prefer to read a physical book than an ebook. And
interesting.
Yes, okay. They obviously TikTok, YouTube, that's still big. But in terms of watching programming, they watch movies now and again, but it's really not. They won't go to the movies, which breaks my heart. And they don't watch any kind of broadcast television. And the only radio they listen to is if they're in a car that doesn't have a aux for their
like a
phone,
sync, yeah,
or
Microsoft Sync,
right,
or a click, a button,
an Apple thing.
Yeah, interesting. The getting your news from TikTok, YouTube is one thing because you could. Yes. Do you think that they gravitate to the main channels, to the legacy media channels on YouTube, or not necessarily? Are they consuming stuff from their echo chamber? I guess?
Echo chamber. In many cases, yes. In many cases, but we try to point them in the direction of. I prefer, I think more independent media today is more honest and forthright because the money has corrupted pretty much everything, right? That chasing the clicks, chasing the advertisers and all of that, that it used to be, and it's funny, before we started, we were talking about the new show, The Paper, which is a spinoff of The Office. One of the episodes is called Church and State, and it's about the influence of management on the editorial side of the paper. And I tell my students about the days when that was a solid wall. If you were offended and angry when management came down or the sales department came down and said, "Hey, we'd like you to cover this story." And we would be like, "Well, that's not a story. Have them buy an ad," right? That's they are, but they would like to see, and that's,
that kind of blew up a long time ago, don't you think?
I think so. And sadly, and again, any issues with mainstream media or legacy media, some of it they brought on themselves through that sort of thing, of allowing that to happen.
If the folks are too young or they don't remember, I mean, you were one of those enterprise reporters at Jet TV back in the late 80s, all of the 90s, early 2000s. You were on the scene for the pizza bomber in 2003. Yep. I mean, you were around during 9/11. I mean, you think about the major events.
Death of Mayor Tullio, for a local story. I saw him really deteriorate. I think I was one of the, obviously not the only one. There were other people from other stations, but I recall being out there one of the last times he was pretty much seen in public. And, and just to see a man who was so robust. And when I grew up, I tell people that I thought he was mayor for life. I thought the job was because he was the only mayor that we knew. And I didn't realize that he would get reelected. But to see him deteriorate and Governor Casey as well from the same disease.
Yeah, Caligari from Pittsburgh.
Caligari from Pittsburgh,
Yeah.
yes.
Rough,
So there were a lot of things going on. Never forget 9/11, of course. That's always will be, and the pizza bomber, right?
Yeah. Where were you at the Pizza Bomber? Were you at
right across the street from him?
Yeah, you were
literally looking
the
right at him when the
Eaton
when
Park
the bomb
or something
went off.
like that, or
no, the Texas Roadhouse.
Texas Roadhouse.
Yeah,
okay.
the I don't know if he was a manager or owner
Yeah.
or whatever, but he pulled us into the parking lot. He's like, "Oh, it's okay, come in here," because the state police wanted us out of there.
Right.
And we were like, "Well, we're all set up now," and they basically threw their hands up and said, "You better watch it," right? And we're like, "We'll be careful." Oh, we're far enough away. We just were on the edge of being far enough away because when it went off, the shrapnel that was in the bomb you could hear it. I could hear it hitting the ground behind me. So, yeah, I was like, that was a little closer than close for comfort.
When you think about those days, again, back then there were 3 newsrooms, right? You had 24, 35, and 12.
Yep.
You really were competing against each other. Big time.
Well, we would tooth and nail. We had. Now, this was the day before. This was before cell phones. We would have 2-way radios that other stations could pick up. So we would have codes so that
you would even sometimes. I remember some of the guys giving out some misinformation
to throw them off.
Yes.
And well, of course, because we had one of the most amazing assignment editors in the history of Erie journalism, Eric Johnson, who would call a cell phone or a payphone. He had the numbers for every payphone in Erie County.
Oh my goodness!
And he would tell you, okay, you're going to turn. And again, he wasn't monitoring where we were, but he knew always where we were. And he'd say, all right, you're going to turn this corner. There's a phone booth at that corner. Pull over and the phone will be ringing. And sure enough, you pulled the phone would ring and you'd pick it up and it'd be him and say, this is what's going on. We called it secret squirrel stuff. Okay, go over here, and we got a lot of big scoops that way.
Wow.
The story with the doctor who murdered his wife and buried her in the basement.
Yes.
Boyle, remember that one?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I was crawling around the backyard with my photog, Mike Parker, trying to look in the windows of the house to see what was going on because we knew something was happening in the basement, but the police weren't talking to us. So,
and again, this is not meant to be super hypercritical about the current crop, but let's face it, the economics of local media have been absolutely obliterated.
Correct.
Is that accurate?
I would say so.
So again, from your academic point of view, what's going on? Because local media obviously plays a huge role in keeping things accountable and informing the public and maybe even advancing a narrative, if you will.
Well, it's of course about attracting the advertisers, attracting people online, and as well as doing a news show is cheaper than getting a syndicated program that people might watch.
Yeah, I noticed that. Like you could put on an additional newscast and save money from paying Sony Pictures.
Fees, yeah.
Another round of Jeopardy or whatever.
So you're squeezing your staff thinner and thinner, and now you're not only when we were doing the news, when I was doing the news, we only had to worry about the newscast. And if it was a really big story, then we'd break into programming, but that didn't happen all the time. It obviously happened with the pizza bomber, but the stories would go at 5, 6, and then we would get ready for the 10 o'clock and 11 o'clock shows. Today, as I tell the students, is that through social media, your deadline is now, right now. Now, when do people want to know what's going on? Now. And you have to feed so many of those beasts, not only the worry about, because the TV is still the bread and butter part, right? Because you've got advertisers that are paying to be on the news, but you also then have the whole social media side of things, and you have to get that out there. And so you're spread thin to try to get everything done check your sources, keep, if the story is an unfolding story, to find out more about it before you go on the air. So yeah, there's a lot of responsibility, and you're stretched real thin.
Were you ever your own camera operator too?
Never. You would not want me to do
the
that.
MMJ, the development of the MMJ, which is a multimedia journalist,
Right.
meaning
We had one when I was there.
Mean that you carry your own. In fact, when I was an intern, it was a union shop. I wasn't allowed to touch anything.
Yeah. Right.
You know?
You wouldn't be. And of course, today now the cameras could be your cell phone.
Right.
And the problem is that my eye for photography is terrible. So, and I always say that working with, like, I would work with Craig Rouse at Jet, who had a brilliant eye and was able to get pictures that told stories that augmented my words. So he would shoot from, as a photojournalist or a videographer, a video journalist, however you want to phrase it. He would do that while I was getting the interview people lined up, finding out what the story was. And then we would discuss what shot makes the most sense. And if there was something I wanted to write to, I would say, hey, get me a shot of that. Equally, he would say, you want to write to this because I shot this really nice thing or cool thing you want in the story. That you lose when it's just yourself.
Yeah.
And you're in a hurry. And it does, I believe, take away from the quality. That was the thing. Mike Allen, who's used to be a local editor, videographer, photojournalist for Channel 35, and he worked for Jet for a little while. But he's the senior editor at ABC News this week with George Stephanopoulos. And he spoke to my students yesterday, and he said that, he goes, isn't it annoying how bad the video is? A lot of the things that go online today are what we accept as being good enough. And he wasn't talking about necessarily any one place in particular, just the overall lack of quality. And I said, what gets me is the lack of audio quality. I can't stand when something doesn't sound right.
Well, there was a time pre-COVID that if you wanted to do a guest shot on a neighbor, and we're going all over the place, and I apologize, but if you were driving all over, but if you wanted to get a guest shot on a national news show, they would send a local team to get a real satellite link.
Oh yeah.
Or they have the new stuff now, right? That is the internet base. But you would never use Zoom, and you certainly would never use AirPods to be your audio. But literally, we're seeing that on national network news, and it blows my mind.
But you have to admit, though, one of the fun things is to look in the background and see what books they have on the shelf,
or the cat climbing.
The cat climbs through, or the woman that had the personal massager device on the shelf behind her. Yeah. But you're right. That great care would be taken in the setting, the sound quality for the guests, so that they could hear.
Yeah, you'd have IFP in your ear and all that stuff, crazy stuff. Again, this conversation is not about, oh, geez, it used to be better. But
two old men crabbing about the news.
Crabbing about the news. No, we want to be talking about, the current climate of the news, because it is getting fraught as people join their own echo chambers, and we want to see if we can talk a bit through that.
Sure.
I've got Brian Sheridan with us here from Mercyhurst University. Stay with us. It's Talk Erie. Brian Sheridan is our guest here. We're talking about the media.
Can I put a quick plug in?
Yes, go for it.
I mentioned Mike Allen.
Yeah.
He is tonight speaking at the Jefferson Society, 7 p.m. It's a free event, and it is all about his journey from Erie to Washington, D.C. And so I encourage anybody who wants to hear Mike talk, and he's previewed his speech for our students yesterday, and he was fantastic. And unfortunately, he won't be selling out the Civic Center,
right.
the Erie Arena.
Well, that's when I saw you last was at Obama. Again, friendly audience, right, for the former president.
99.7%. Yep.
Yeah, maybe not all of them voted for him, but they were certainly cordial.
For sure.
Again,
beautiful Erie audience.
It was a president who came to town,
and he was no drama Obama.
Yes, that's exactly right. But what shocked me is how covered his words were in the days following. I mean, first off, again, I was part of the working press. We weren't allowed to record anything.
Right.
But don't we know the next day there's all kinds of video everywhere. So I don't know how that works.
Well, they must have wanted to lease it or something out.
Exactly.
But Mike was telling us that ABC ignored him because he said, Obama's going to be in Erie. And they were like, oh, that's nice. And then all of a sudden they were like, hey, wait, you said Obama's going to be in Erie? Can we, and he's like, I don't know. It's a little late now. It was like the day of the day before.
To ship him in
all
here,
of a sudden, yeah. And it was like, it's too late. And, but
same thing for the New York Times. The New York Times did not bring anybody to Erie. And so they were kind of catching their tentacles here in town, including really talking to me.
Anything he did say was stable for a week, right? It wasn't going to go out of date that quickly.
But there's something that he said I want you to comment on. He talked about kind of basic norms.
Yes.
And some people on the right think that he was the original violator of the norms, that he was a divider, his administration, especially in the second term. Some of the events that happened there. Is there a pivot point that you can pick to where we really got to be much more in our own silos between left and right, Republican, Democrat? I don't know how many, rich, poor. There's all kinds of different slices.
Well, I want to back it up because something he said that surprised me that I had never given thought to. And this makes sense. And we don't even have to talk about the media and our bubbles. We could talk about Congress.
There you go.
He said it was much easier to be bipartisan when everybody looked alike. It was only when people like him and women started coming in that it made it more difficult to be bipartisan. And I thought, wow, I never thought about it from that perspective before. And again, being a middle class white guy that who's not in Congress, of course,
right?
But yeah, that would probably make a difference.
Yeah, I mean, it almost is a reflection back to the founders, where they were all rich white landowners, right? Yeah. That's who came up with the government, which has served us well, no doubt.
The Constitution, one of the greatest documents in history.
Yeah, despite the flaws of the original founders. Right?
Nothing is going to be perfect.
Right, exactly. Free speech came up, this week with the reaction to Jimmy Kimmel's remarks about the Charlie Kirk assassination. I want your take, and then I'll throw some back at you.
Well, first of all, as a regular Jimmy Kimmel watcher, if you would have seen the show the day of the assassination, that tragedy, he expressed that this was not the way of handling differences of opinions or anything. Violence solves nothing in that. And really, it was more, the jokes were more about how his death was being utilized to, again, push a certain narrative without having facts. We still don't really know or exactly what happened, right?
Right.
We just know the outcomes.
You were starting to get the conspiracy theories about did he act alone?
And it
all
happened
that stuff,
immediately.
yeah.
Like
Yeah.
there was no waiting.
Right.
And this is one of the drawbacks, of course, of social media, is that you could just put all that out there, and there's very little responsibility. But unfortunately, a comedian his job is to tell jokes, or her job is to tell jokes. He bared the brunt of that anger. And it was more than that, just what he said.
Explain to the audience about the relationship between the affiliates like Sinclair and Nexstar,
Yes,
and the ABC network itself.
So this is what's interesting, and this is what I talk about in my mass media class, is that basically the business model here for the affiliates in 2025 is basically the radio model from the 1920s.
Wow.
Right?
Yeah.
You have an affiliate, because back when radio started, you had CBS, NBC, and then NBC had the red network and the blue network, and then they spun the red network off into ABC,
Right.
because the government said, hey, you can't own both. And so there was some protections there. So we had ABC. And then when TV came along, they just moved in. Now there were some other TV networks like Mutual, Dumont that were tiny, regional, and they went out of business, and
got swallowed up.
And the only real change is that we moved from single sponsorships on shows to multi-sponsorships. It used to be, Philip Morris cigarettes.
The Camel Caravan of news.
Camel Caravan. So then, which actually the networks were happy to get rid of, because the power was originally just in those advertisers, the one single advertiser, keeping them happy. Now you could spread it out. So it's to have Nexstar and Sinclair go in the face of ABC. I don't know. I think is a dangerous move today, because next year, what if ABC goes, hey, you know what? You don't want to show our programming? Fine. We'll farm out to somebody else. Maybe Lilly Broadcasting wants to drop CBS, which is the lowest rated network, for ABC, and they'll show our content.
So yeah, the balance of power has shifted over the decades, where it used to be the affiliates. I mean, they used to wine and dine them. They used to take care of them.
Well,
now it's the affiliates that are saying, I need this programming. We're talking to a professor of media from Mercyhurst University. Brian Sheridan is with us here. Got to go to news. This is what we're talking about here on Talk Erie.
Kimmel's come a long way since the Man Show.
We're talking about the media here, and Brian Sheridan is with us. Finish your thought there. Yeah, he has grown up from the Man Show, hasn't he, Jimmy Kimmel?
Certainly is very much a different person than if you remember that show.
Well, I've only seen clips. We are live from our Kingdom Financial Group studio. We're talking about the media with the Mercyhurst University professor, and you think about. Let's go on a rabbit trail just for a second here. Kind of rail against the machine. You're talking to young people. You're talking to Gen Zers and 20-somethings about media and their choices and maybe their aspirations for jobs. Is there any interest in working in television, radio, or newspaper anymore?
Not newspapers. But there are definitely people interested in journalism.
Okay.
They want to tell stories about where they live or what's going on in the world. So yes, I've got some that are interested in that.
Yeah, it's funny because we talk about it at the station all the time. When I was the general manager at WCTL 20 years ago, I couldn't go through a week without getting a resume in the mail. Mm-hmm. Are you hiring? You got any? And again, that's the old analog way of how we did things, but I can't tell you the last time we even had an inquiry about
Well, I'll
jobs.
tell you, sports media is the big one.
That is, isn't it?
That's what, yeah, and we now have a sports communication track within our major so that we can train, and now we're the D1 school.
Right.
And they really could use the help due to the requirements.
The sheer volume of data.
Of press releases and broadcasts and streaming and all of that. So we've created this to train them, and we're getting students that are very excited about that. And sports is news. I mean, sports,
no doubt.
It's
the Today Show has
the money that goes into it.
The Today Show has a sports story every morning.
Yeah.
As part of their their lineup at the top of the hour. It's amazing. Weather is now news. Sports is now news.
Sure.
But news maybe not.
That's unfortunate. Yes.
Yeah.
That news has, we've made it more opinion than news in many cases, and that I think was the biggest problem, or the biggest problem. If people would just, I don't want to hear from somebody's opinion about it. I want to hear from somebody who's affected by it or they're covering it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Do you think that the news business does things better in crises vis-a-vis, just kind of on a normal news day? I'm thinking about, I saw some amazing coverage, let's say, of the floods in Texas,
mm-hmm.
And just being able to draw in survivors of that Camp Mystic, and they seem to,
That is still, yes, that is because you're what you're there to do is really noble, right? Because telling the stories of these people can get them help if they can't get it anywhere
Mm-hmm.
else. And so being out there, and it's dramatic, it's got all the bells and whistles that you would want in a great story.
Right.
And that's, you don't need the opinions then, right? That's you've got the video, you've got the pictures, right? So if it's television,
right,
all of that.
Yeah, in the midst of the tragedy, right?
And I'm not making light of that. That this is where journalists are often labeled as vultures, or that's
ambulance chasers
and things like that. But they are. That is news. That is
Mm-hmm.
that's. I'm not saying that's
because
everybody gets excited about doing
if that
it,
story happens in your neighborhood or to a relative of you, you're really, on pins and needles. You want to hear every source of data that you can. I'm thinking about the Woodard family, and here we are, a couple months since the shooting of Marcello Woodard, and we still don't have any kind of a verdict. Mm-hmm. Meanwhile, we've had the celebrity attorney Ben Crump come to town. We've had multiple demonstrations, both in council meetings, city and county, as well as on street corners. There was a fellow with a bullhorn the night of President Obama's appearance. You have a community trying to make sure that this doesn't fall off the news cycle.
Yes, and it's today we have the attention span of, the dog from Up, where we are easily and because so many things happen because we are all so connected. It just seems like that was 6 months ago.
Right.
Time goes by, and
wow.
And I don't. Hopefully, it's not just because I'm old now that is a thing. But I just seem to think that there is so much more, and things get blown up, and in terms of becoming what everyone is talking about, to only to be replaced tomorrow by something else where a hair's on fire, and.
Right.
It does make it seem like it was a long time ago, and that is easily happened. And frankly, TV news especially has always been bad at follow-ups.
Okay.
They usually are chasing the shiny object because you need the pictures and you want new pictures. And news is, as I always tell my students, right? News is new. What is new about this?
Right.
And sometimes when a story goes dormant, there's nothing to report. Then suddenly you forget about it.
Yeah, I mean, you think about some of these cases, like the Debbie Gamma case. I don't know.
I still want to know what happened to Ted and Cheryl Branch. You remember them?
No,
the ones that defected to Russia from Erie, and then they got over there, and then they found out, oops, it's not all, rainbows and unicorns,
Wow.
and then they defected back, and I'm sure they've passed away, maybe,
right.
But it's just like, yeah, we had stories, but.
They were massive back then.
It was a big, big story.
Yeah.
Because it was an international story. Now, so, and that was pre-social media days where things are easier to share and become more clickbaity. And
I don't want to be a nag, but
right.
I talk a lot about consuming a lot of different media. Mm-hmm. I'll listen to the Pod Save America Bros, and I'll listen to Ben Shapiro. Mm-hmm. I mean, I feel like they're on the opposite sides of the spectrum. Again, those are opinion journalists. Mm-hmm. I would consider that they're bringing some new information on both sides, and I can appreciate that, and I can try to cut through the stuff that I think is superfluous or kind of nutso or I don't agree with, but I'm able to learn something. But am I a unicorn? I mean, because I just don't feel like I want to stay in my bubble. Where my natural leanings are.
That's human nature. Are you asking me if young people?
Well, I'm asking you, is there a best practice? How do you force yourself to listen to something? Because we have, and even though I think even President Obama might have referred to it, we used to have Walter Cronkite. Well, right. Walter Cronkite actually kind of was a little center left, especially after he went to Vietnam, saw the carnage and said, this is ridiculous.
Yeah.
We got to stop this, which we should have listened to Walter. Right? Maybe a lot more of our troops would have come home.
Been saved.
Yeah.
Well, I always see that, if you just go to the Associated Press, you're pretty much guaranteed to have a middle-of-the-road telling of the story, of the facts. Everything else is kind of gravy. Like, if you want your news with opinion, but having a place where it's just, or Reuters.
Yeah, I see. So what I find in those
You
sources,
want to be entertained.
Well, no, I do a little bit, but I also find in those sources that there's a turn of phrase that they'll use that is will generally be negative to President Trump or like that they're trying to, you could see subtle hits, even in an AP story, because of the worldview of who's writing it.
There actually is an app that I'm not sure the name of it. I just saw it advertised where it will pull all the articles and then judge them through AI on are they left, center, left, right, far right.
Wow. And that's kind of cool.
And you could peruse then to see where the similarities happen and from what point of view are they being written from. So maybe AI saves us in that, right?
As it takes all of our communications jobs. I mean, don't you think? Let's talk about AI. We've got just a couple minutes left.
I use a lot of it. I use it all the time.
Yeah, we were just saying how pretty much anymore I start writing my scripts with AI and then I humanize them,
Yeah.
But don't you think that we're very close to a situation, I think, unless it's already happening now, that you can tell the AI, give me a news summary with an emphasis on financial stories, and when I wake up at 7 o'clock, I want you to wake me up with this with this AI robot broadcaster.
Yeah, right. I've one of my favorite things to do is to get something and then just tell it to write it in a different voice. Like if I wanted to sound like Gay Talese, one of the great writers, write me this or write it for if it's going in this magazine.
Jimmy Breslin.
Yeah.
Give me Jimmy Breslin.
Give me Jimmy Breslin. And by gosh, it will give you exactly that. You will read it and go, it's like he wrote it.
My gosh.
It's amazing.
That's insane.
And again, that is something that we need to be focused on. And everyone who's an expert on AI, I am not an expert, agrees with, is that we need guardrails, we need laws, because it's happening at a rapid rate. And Obama's talked about that as well.
Yeah, he said we need to be having a conversation.
Yeah, and we don't like to talk.
No, we don't. Not right now. Let's get a phone call in here. Hey, Phil, you're live with Brian Sheridan.
Brian Sheridan, the guy I gave a bowling bag to.
Hey, Phil, yeah. Very, very, thank you so much.
Did you display it lovingly?
I did, and I took it to the lanes and showed my team and everybody, and everyone was just amazed by it.
Oh, my gosh. Isn't that a great piece of history?
Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, listen, I was just chiming in just what Joel said regarding news sources. And it's funny, you guys are talking about AI and everything, and I think you're kind of right on the money with that, Joel. But I actually, every day at lunch, I sit down and I turn on a website. I go to a website called Real Clear Politics. And I could literally take a card, and I've tested myself, and hide the title of the article and just go down what outlet it's from. Because Real Clear Politics basically works like this. The first headline will be why Trump is great. Then the next headline will be why Trump's the worst. Then the next headline will be Trump is great. They mix it up a lot. They give you both sides, which I like. Back to your point, Joel, I try to not be live in a bubble. But it's amazing. If I cover up with my hand the name of the article and just go down by which outlet it came from, I can tell you which one's to be left or right just by the name of the source. You know, if it's the New York Times, Wall Street Journal. There's very few that trick you. It's I don't know, maybe because I consume so much news, but Joel, like you just said, sometimes these guys just can't help themselves, or ladies, they got to interject their own take on it.
Yeah, there's a little.
And that's the problem I have. That's the problem I have. Like,
well, and you hear it on Fox News all the time, too. I mean, there's
well,
always.
We know what we're getting when we tune in.
I guess so.
Well, and that's one of the arguments they say that it should just be an open.
Yeah,
just not
tell
an open secret, because then you know this is where it's coming from.
Yeah.
So own it. Don't say, oh no, we're
right.
we're this side or the other.
Back to critical thinking, though.
Yeah.
Not everything Fox News is a lie, as they say. Same with CNN. Not everything is a lie. You got to really discern, because people just say, "Oh, Fox lies, CNN lies." You just gotta. Yeah. Okay. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
My marching orders to my students is question everything, not in a cynical way.
No,
but
that's fantastic. Like you say, critical thinking. Someone's asking, have you ever heard of COINTELPRO, or COINT?
I've heard of it. But
COINTELPRO,
yeah. But I can't tell you anything about it.
Okay.
But that name does ring a bell. I've seen it, but
so where does this go? Like right now, there's a lot of talking across each other.
Mm-hmm.
Media, the respect for the media is at an all-time low, right? I mean, golly. How does and then you have the economics of it all. I mean, very much ABC, these payments to Trump, for CBS's 60 Minutes, this is an economic calculation.
Right. It's because they want to merge with Skydance,
right?
And Nexstar wants to merge with that company, and Sinclair is going to buy that company, and so this again, it goes back to if we are, what is the government? And again, because they are public entities, this again is where it gets really mucky and gray,
yes.
and that in a true society of capitalism, right? Why is the government getting involved in these deals when this is what's happening?
Yeah, well, like even the NAB is advocating, why do we have ownership limits?
Right.
Let's just let the market figure itself out.
It's like I don't want journalists to be licensed by the government because they're supposed to be holding them accountable.
Right. Let's sneak in one more call here. Hi, you're live with Brian Sheridan here. We've got about like a minute.
Okay, if Brian Sheridan is not familiar with COINTELPRO, that's an issue. COINTELPRO was a program by the FBI for a number of years, and they subverted Walter Cronkite.
Right.
Walter Cronkite was fed. He used the government intel sources to report the news until he had a break with the COINTEL program, and that's why he went against the Vietnam War. Okay. But up until he turned, he was a source. He worked along with the COINTELPRO, and that came out in his biography.
Yeah, I'll have to go back and look through that.
Thanks for the call. Appreciate it. Okay. Well, yeah. Again, you think we go back 60 plus years, you had the working press around the White House who did not talk about JFK's
or FDR. I mean, it was the thing. But back to a preferred future here. Well, we agree that local legacy media is essential. I mean, we both participated in that WQLN Chronicles of like, hey, we've got to still have this. Yes. Yeah, we need it, definitely, for sure.
Yeah.
Because of we need to know what's going on in our community.
We've got to hold the powerful accountable.
How else are you going to know about it? Because nobody from Fox News or CNN or the New York Times or the Washington Times or whatever is going to cover that unless if it's a super big, huge scandal. But it's the little things that make up.
So how do you pay for it?
Yeah.
I mean, should we be doing a subscription basis? I mean, people don't want to pay for another stream, to get the local news.
Right.
Come on,
yeah.
I mean, maybe the TVs are still making money though. Although if your kids are not, they never watch broadcast.
Right. No, they watch. If they do watch a network show, they wait till they binge it or they watch it on Hulu.
So you've got these expensive $1.5 million an episode, programs.
Yeah.
Right, on Law and Order, and they're not watching.
No.
They're not watching.
Which again,
Chicago.
We hear the Colbert thing with being that it makes perfect sense that
$50 million a year. Right?
Yeah, it's like running a Broadway show every 4 days, 5 days out of the week, and not charging your audience to go see it. So again, in that instance, it does make sense that was a financial decision. Now, did it please the federal government that they did that, or in the sale? Possibly, and probably yes. But they also canceled the show after that, which was After Midnight, which was directed at young people, had one of the funniest comedians working today, Taylor Tomlinson, and it cost too much money. And so they're out of that and showing a clip show now from Byron Allen's company. And
wow.
So, yeah, it's cost a lot of money, and their ratings are going down.
Yeah, kind of hard to know what this all ends up being, isn't it?
I don't have a crystal ball.
Well, thank you for what you do in educating our upcoming journalists and things. And, yeah, maybe we'll all just be watching SportsCenter or something. I don't know.
Maybe, right?
Although SportsCenter is basically news now too, right?
Well, when you're talking about millionaires and billionaires, it is news.
It's amazing. Brian
All right.
Sheridan
Hey,
at
thanks for
Mercyhurst
asking. Good seeing
University. Appreciate it. It's 4:54.